Morning, everyone. This is Mark here, and today I'm going to take you through a little bit on counter sales for Business Central. Now, counter sales is essentially point of sale or point of service, and what it's intended for is, really a professional trade desk type environment. So for example, you go into Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever, and you go up to the contractor desk. I mean, they're not running a point of sale system. You're asking them, hey, I need this type of product, and they're digging through and figuring out who has it and how to get it and all those sorts of things. That's kind of the market we're targeting, right? So, somebody with a parts counter, like a manufacturer with a parts counter, or a distributor that also has B2B, counter sales and those types of things is really where we're going with it. Now, we do all the point of sale type stuff as well. So, we actually have a number of customers that are actually just using it for sort of retail point of sales, but it's really intended for sort of that professional salesperson at a trade desk that's going to be able to figure out what the customer needs. And to do that, what they're going to need is they're going to need, access to everything that we typically have within Business Central. So the, full product lists, the inventory at other stores, all of those sorts of things that they need to make a decision on what to sell the customer, right? So again, this is really what we're targeting, but again, we have tons of retailers using it, and it's just a standard retail store. But that's not the target market. The target market is really the professional salespeople at a trade desk. All right, now what can it do? So there's pros and cons to this. It's built right into Business Central. So there's no separate interface or anything like that you use. You're in Business Central, which means it gives you the full power of Business Central, right? So that's kind of the pro. If I want to look up details on a purchase order for something that's coming in, or history, sales history on item, all that kind of stuff, that's right in Business Central. Now the downside on that is, we use the Business Central interface. So they're going in and they're using something that looks similar to a sales order within Business Central. So it's not a point of sale system that you would get, a 15-year-old student to come in and run your point of sale with, though people do. It's, again, more for a professional person. Now, what it does, in addition to, just being built into Business Central, it simplifies a lot of the stuff in Business Central, right? Using Business Central at a counter or, for point of sale is not easy. So it sort of streamlines a lot of those processes, simplifies it, makes it a lot easier to use. It does allow you to scan barcodes. So if somebody comes up to the counter with a bunch of stuff, you can just beep, beep, beep it all in to build up your sales. Improved search tools, which is hugely important for these counter sales type environment where you're looking for specific products by description. And here's where sort of the point of sale stuff comes in. We can take payments, and we can take multiple payment methods. So somebody could pay us part cash, part credit card, or a couple different credit cards or whatever. And we can also do deposits and layaways. So we can track deposits on sort of cash sale customers. So a random customer can walk in, they're not on account or anything, give us a deposit, and we can track that and apply that to the final order and everything else. And doing returns and all sorts of things. We've also got reporting for lost sales and price adjustment and all those sorts of things. And then finally, the daily close procedures where you can close out the day, do your cash drawer reconciliation, those types of things. Now, a quick note on that cash drawer reconciliation. On the cloud version, we don't have an interface to a cash drawer or anything like that. So if you are using a cash drawer, if a customer wants a cash drawer, that's going to be either a custom deployment thing using our print node connector, or it's just they're going to have a manual cash drawer that they hit to open. And that's basically it. All right, so that's kind of what it does. Let's actually jump in and look at the demo of the thing. So obviously within Business Central, you can tailor, the role center here to whatever you like, but this is sort of the standard one that comes, for a counter sales order processor. All right, so I'll point out a few little things on here you can do, and there's also one for a manager that gives them the daily close and margin reporting and all that kind of fun stuff. But one of the key things on here, down here, this My Locations gives you the ability to specify the locations you care about. So this particular person that's logged in here, can see by default inventory at these additional locations without having to jump through a lot of hoops to do that. And each employee is going to be tied to a specific location. So if you have a multi-location environment, you know, I can, when I'm in here, I'm always tied to the blue location or the main location or whatever it happens to be. All right. Now, a few of the things that we can do on here, I'll walk through the counter sales wizard in a sec, but we've got, you know, a price check screen. So that's pretty typical. Somebody phones up and they want to see if you have something in stock, what the cost is. So we have a simplified method for that. We have the enhanced item search that I'm going to show you in a minute. But the key ones are really the take order wizard and just doing counter sales. Before I do the take order wizard, actually, I'm going to do the price check really quick. So let's say a customer phones up. Now this location code, that's the location code I'm in, and that's important because that's going to drive what we have for stock and everything else. But a customer phones up and says, yeah, you know, I want to check on the price. And if they're on an account customer, right, because again, it's sort of B2B professional sales, you know, they may have special pricing. They may have a customer price group set up or whatever it happens to be. So we might want to enter the customer here. If it's not going to be a specific customer, you know, we could just use the cash customer here to get the pricing. But I'm going to come in, specify that customer. I'm just going to type in the item number. Of course, we can search and everything else, and it gives me the price and what I have available at each location. So, you know, I've got an inventory issue here. I'm actually -1 on hand, and I'm -19 available. And of course, that availability incorporates, you know, what's on sales orders and everything else as well. And of course, this is all built in with the standard pricing stuff. You know, if I say they want 5, we can see the price breaks and everything else. If they decide they want this, I can just hit click to add, and it's going to add that item onto the sales order for me automatically. So simple as that. Okay, so that's a really quick little interface for doing price checks, very handy for those types of environments. But really what we're talking about is counter sales. So somebody's going to walk up to the counter. I'm a parts guy or something like that, and I'm sitting at the counter. Somebody comes up and they want to buy something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this take order wizard. Now we can create a counter sales order directly as well, but this take order wizard is kind of nice because what it allows me to do, you know, a customer walks up and I say, you know, and they've got a few things in their hand they want to buy, and they have some questions. So I say, you know, what's your phone number? So they give me their phone number, and I say, you Gary? And they say, yep, and away I go. Or I say, hey, are you Gary? And they say, nope, I'm not Gary. And the phone number they gave me is maybe the phone number for the company they're with, in this case, Progressive. So I say, you know, who are you? Well, I'm Jim. So I can actually come in here and hit new contact. And let's say, you know, there's 3 options here. The one I'm working with is, you know, Jeff or whatever came in and gave me the company phone number. So I'm going to add Jeff as a contact for that customer that I looked up by phone number. Or I can add them as a new cash customer. They give me their phone number, I can't find them. They say, yeah, I'm Jeff, and I can add them as a new cash customer. Now that doesn't actually add a customer in Business Central. That's going to add a contact to a default cash customer for this location. So what that means is I still have a generic customer called cash or whatever, but I can actually track the details of the people I'm selling to. So from a marketing perspective, I can get their email address, their name, all that kind of stuff. So I can, you know, continue to market to them or see their sales history for that specific customer, take deposits, all of that sort of thing, without having to create a new actual customer record in Business Central, which is what this new account customer is. So typically, you know, unless it's a small organization where, you know, they're allowed to actually create new on-account customers, nobody's going to really use this, but that would actually create a new customer record within Business Central. But if I come in here and I say, yeah, new cash customer, because I couldn't find them in my list here, it'll just come in and it'll say, you know, his name is Jimmy Boy or whatever, and I can take whatever information they're willing to give me, you know, email address and phone number ideally, and you know, from that I'm good. I hit OK. That's created that, you know, contact for me automatically. So now I can track sales against, you know, Jimmy Boy here, and I now just enter what I'm selling in. Okay. Now the way I have it set up, and I can show you the setup in a bit. When I finish that take order wizard, I have it set up to take me to a sales order entry screen. So this looks very much like a standard sales order in Business Central, right? Except it's a counter sales order. And there's a few tweaks and differences here that I'll get into in a minute. But the other option is after I finish that, you know, choosing the customer that I want to sell to. And again, I didn't have to enter any of that contact information. I could have just chosen the cash customer, and the guy comes up and they say, what's your name and your phone number? And he says, get out of here, I'm not giving you any of that. You just do a cash sale and we don't care who we're actually selling to. Now, regardless, after I choose who I'm selling to, I could have also had it pop up in what we call the quick scan screen. And what this allows me to do is, instead of a normal sales order, if somebody comes to the counter and they've got a handful of stuff they want to buy, I can just come in here and scan in that product rather than actually just typing it in or anything else. So somebody comes up and they've got one of these things, I just scan it, it adds it in, shows me pictures, shows me a bunch of other details about it, right? All this stuff I'll get into in a sec. And maybe they have 2 of those. If I scan it a couple times, it just keeps incrementing the quantity, and then they've got something else, and so on and so forth. So I can just really scan in what they're buying. And this will look up based on the UPC code or the item number or whatever you're scanned in. It'll come in and build up that order for us and track the costs and everything else. Okay, so we could have had it come into this view instead, which is really a very simple point of sale interface. If you have barcodes, you just beep, 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 and you're done, and you take your payments and you're off to the races. In a more complex situation, I might have to come in here and sort of type in what I'm selling these guys. And in a case like that, it works basically exactly like standard Business Central. I just type it in and away we go. But I'll show you a couple other things that we can do with this. First of all, let's say somebody comes in and they're looking for a specific wheel, a type of wheel. So I can type wheel, and oh, look, Business Central is awesome, right? I type wheel, it gives me everything with the word wheel in it or whatever. But maybe I've got millions of those things, so I want to, restrict it down to, the front wheel, right? So I type that in, and I've got 2 things for front wheel, but that actually doesn't have what I'm looking for. We have an issue here, right? The issue is whoever entered in the description didn't enter it front wheel. They entered something weird in there, let's say. So what I can do is I can go in and I can use the enhanced item search, we call it. And what this allows us to do is come in here and search by description, item number, or pretty much anything else, right? If I want to search by the vendor's item number, or manufacturer's item number, or whatever I want to do, item category code, I can sort by all of this stuff, even by serial number. If somebody comes up and I don't know what the item number is, but it's got a serial number on there, I can search by that. It's got all of this detail for searching. But the key one typically in counter sales environments is, I'm looking for something with a specific description. And again, I can't not emphasize this enough, where that searching by description is so important in these environments, because often we have people, that are using vendor descriptions, right? They've pulled in all the descriptions from the vendor, or these item masters have been built up over the years, and the descriptions are not consistent, right? If I'm looking for a bolt or something like that, somebody typed some of them in as bolt, 1 inch, other people typed in 1 inch bolt. You don't know how those things are. So being able to search by description easily is important. So what do I mean by that? If I type in that front wheel and hit search, you'll notice the results. I've got front wheel, and then I've got wheel axle front and chain wheel front, so on and so forth. So it doesn't matter what order I put these things in or anything else. I just type that in, and it'll find those terms within there and show them to me. And you're thinking, well, duh, I mean, that's how things should work in the current day and age, right? You just expect to be able to type these things in and have it pop up. The problem is Business Central doesn't do that by default, right? So to do something similar to that, you're saying, well, if I go into the normal item list, it kind of does that, doesn't it? Well, sure. If I come into the normal item list, so this is the standard Business Central item list, and I come in and I type in, front wheel, just like I did on the advanced one, again, it doesn't do that full search for me. It doesn't figure that out. To do the equivalent of what I did in that enhanced item search, where I just typed in front wheel and I got everything with those terms, I'd have to do something like this, and this is not going to be pretty. I'd have to go into description, and I'd have to say something like, something like that to do that same search, and I actually even did it wrong. So I've been using that for I don't know how long, and I still did it wrong. So we have to do something like that to bring it in, right? So, and even this didn't give us the results we wanted. You don't want your users doing that. So this is really handy. So I know I spent a ton of time on that, but it's very important. Now, a couple other things that we do on here, other than all that different search criteria we can make use of, you know, the location filter is actually filtering down all of this detail here as far as what's on purchase orders, what's being transferred in, what's on existing sales orders, all of that kind of stuff. And if we want, I can say, okay, I want to look at all the locations that I've set up in my locations, and now this will reflect, you know, my locations instead of just my main location or whatever else. And again, I can come in here and see all the details down below and all that kind of stuff as well. Okay, so that's basically how that enhanced search works. Very useful, very, very important. Now, a few other things on here that I'll mention. You know, again, when we come in here on the fact box, if you want to have it over here, you can see, again, the other locations. If I don't have any in stock, we can see who does have it in stock, and we can potentially send the people to those locations. If we're in an environment where we have, you know, retail locations set up in Business Central, and we have a warehouse location just, you know, behind the back door there, I can see the warehouse location stock and my storefront stock, and we have some integration with that warehouse capability where we can come in and, you know, create a pick ticket for that warehouse directly from here, and it'll create the shipment and pick and everything else. So we do have some integration with the warehouse capabilities within Business Central as well, and we have done customizations, you know, that do things like if I post this order, even though some of it's coming from the warehouse, it'll automatically do the picks and all that kind of stuff behind the scenes for me and just make it work seamlessly. Okay. All right. So again, we can look at, you know, different locations, things like that. This related items is kind of handy because, you know, I'm selling this particular thing. Maybe I don't have stock. I can use this sort of as substitutions, like in Standard Business Central, it has substitutions, but this is a little more flexible, right? I can come in here and I can say, you know, show me all the related items. I can see it in the fact box, but I can also see that list here along with all the details about those related items. And this could be an upsell opportunity. Yeah, they're buying a speaker. Well, maybe with that speaker, we want to sell them a stand and some cables and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I can just select a whole bunch of these, hit add to order, and it'll add those onto the order for me automatically. Okay, so it's a quick way to allow for upselling of related items or finding substitutions as well. Okay. Now, let's say on this particular thing, this front wheel, I actually don't want to sell that for whatever reason. I can come in here and I can create a lost sale. So I can delete that item, or if I go create lost sale, what it allows me to do is specify why I lost that sale, right? Price was too high, wasn't in stock, whatever you want to do, you know, guy didn't like me, whatever you want to put in there, and we can track those lost sales. And that's handy, especially if you want to report on, you know, are you losing, you know, sales because you didn't have the right pricing or you didn't have it in stock, that type of stuff. So if you want, you can do that. And then instead of just deleting the line, we can actually track why we lost that particular sale. Along those lines, we also have the ability to come in here. Let's say, you know, he says, you know, that price is way too high. I can get it across the street for 50 bucks or whatever. So I can come in here and change that price, of course. But in this particular case, it's going to prompt me for reason codes, and my user ID actually does have an override code, so it's not prompting me to enter that. But if I'm just, you know, somebody at the counter that doesn't have the permission to change pricing on an order, this would pop up, and a manager, somebody with the right authorization would have to come over and authorize this price change. Okay. Now, on this, it's took the price I entered, and I can enter a discount here, and then it gives me my new effective price. And again, I can specify the reason code for why I'm giving this discount. So now when you're doing your margin reporting and everything else, you know exactly why this thing sold for $48 instead of $58. Okay, so we track all of that type of information as well. Okay, so that's the basics. Now, you know, that's really order entry. Those are some of the things we can do. You can scan stuff in, you can type it in, you can do a search. And there was a question on this, you know, can you show lot numbers in the search? You can search by lot number as well, and you could have a fact box that shows all the possible lot numbers for that product that we're on, right? So if you search for a specific product, we could show the lot numbers for that particular product if you like as well. But as far as searching, if you want to search for a specific lot number, you can, right? So if you want to see if you have something in stock or what lot number something relates to, I don't know actually if I have any lot numbers in this environment. Yeah, so no results. But if there was an item with that specific lot number or that part of that lot number, it would actually show up in my search results. Okay, all right, so that's the basics of order entry, right? I can scan stuff in, I can type it in like normal, I can use that advanced search, I can use the related items to add additional things onto the order. All of that kind of stuff is there, and that's how it works. But now, you know, I'm ready to go out and get payment for this particular order. And this was a cash sale, right? Because what I did was I created this Jimmy Boy guy that just walked in, and he's a cash customer. He's not on account or anything like that. So it's going to come in as a cash sale. So I say, yep, we're ready to do this. So I hit post, and it says, okay, how are you going to pay, right? Now, and by the way, when I hit post, I just hit, you know, the F9 hotkey, but I basically went in, you know, same thing for actions. I'd go into action, I'd hit post, and this pops up. If it's a cash sale, if it's an on-account customer, right, they've got terms, we wouldn't see this payment screen pop up. It would just post like it normally does and put it on their account, and we're good to go. So in here, I can come in and just say, yeah, you know what, they're giving us $200 on Amex, and and the authorization number. So this is another important point here. You can force authorization numbers for different payment methods. Now, by default, we don't do the payment processing. So we're not going to go out and run this Amex card and get the authorization number by default. We can integrate with payment providers that are out there, right? So other add-ons for Business Central that do that credit card processing, we can integrate with, right? So you'd have a button up at the top here to run that card. But by default, the way it works is, you know, at minimum, we enter the payment type and optionally the authorization number. So you'd run that card through the terminal that you normally have at the counter, enter, you know, the last 6 digits of the authorization number, or whatever you want to do, and you're good to go, right? So counter sales by default doesn't do the credit card processing, but we can integrate with people that do credit card processing. Or most of our customers, they have the terminal from the bank, you know, at the counter, and they just, you know, tap or swipe the card manually and do it that way. Now, so Amex was, you know, $200, and I have $508 left over. So I'm just going to do the rest in cash, and away we go. Now, a couple of things on that. You know, in Canada here, we don't do anything to the penny. It's always rounded up to the nickel. So you can set up rounding on this when you're doing cash sales. It'll actually round up that order amount when you're on a cash payment method to the nearest 5 cents or 10 cents or whatever you have it set to, and it'll use the Business Central payment tolerances and stuff to deal with that difference in those payments. Okay, and that's basically it. So I do this, I take my payment, I hit OK, and it posts the order, applies the payment, and we're done. Simple as that. And we can go back and look at it historically, look at all the payments that were made by, you know, a cash customer, and in this case specifically for Jimmy Boy, and all that kind of stuff is tracked. Now I'm going to cancel out of this because what I wanted to show you as well was the ability to do deposits. So let's say the person comes in and we didn't have these things in stock. So I'm not going to ship them today. I'm going to sell them these two. So I'm going to actually ship these 2 items, but this one I'm not, and I'm actually going to take a deposit. So we're able to actually go in there and take those deposits, and we can take multiple deposits on a sales order. And remember, just to back up, this is a generic cash customer, and we just know the person's name is Jimmy Boy, but I can still take deposits against this order and track them right back to Jimmy Boy, even though he's just a contact and he's not an actual customer within Business Central. So I'm going to go in and take a deposit, and he's going to give me, you know, a cash deposit of $50, right? And I don't need an authorization number for it. So I go in, I take the cash deposit, and it posts the deposit. Actually, I have a bad setting there. It'll post that deposit and make it available for me in the future, right? So that didn't actually post because my posting groups or something weren't set up properly. Let's go to one here where I did post a deposit earlier. So I can come in, somebody comes in and says, you know, yeah, here I'm Joe or whoever this guy is. And by the way, when we post that deposit, we print out a deposit receipt. So they can come back and say, here's this receipt for this deposit I did, and we can use that to find the sales order that deposit is related to. So in this case, he gave us a $500 deposit. So when he comes in to actually pay the remaining amount, and incidentally, I can take more deposits, right? So I could take another $50 deposit. So he could continue to pay this on a weekly basis like a layaway until it's paid off and he can take the product. But when I actually go to post this now, to post this order, you can see that we've got the actual deposit applied to the order and it draws down on the total amount owing, right? So any deposits that are in here will get listed and we'll be able to just take the remaining payment. And that's a lot different than the prepayment stuff that you see in Business Central. The prepayment stuff, unless it's been recently fixed, doesn't work very well for full deposits within North America for the tax stuff and everything else. This is a much more flexible approach, much better tracking, all of those sorts of things versus the prepayment capability in Business Central. Okay, so that's basically it. Those are the bulk. You know, that's the bulk of the interface for managing orders within the system. Just to recap, you know, lots of different ways we can enter it. We can just type stuff in, we can scan it in, we can use related items, we can use the enhanced item search to find those things, and it really just simplifies everything that we're doing. A couple other things that I should mention: if we want to change the shipping information, create ship to addresses, all that kind of stuff, or see the billing information, we hide that by default, and that's just a quick click to make them visible. So what the employees see is something, you know, very simple here. You know, really they're dealing with, if I'm doing manual entry, I'm really only dealing with a couple of fields in the system. I'm coming in and, you know, I'm hitting enter and it's taking me over to the quantity, and then I enter the quantity, hit enter, and it takes me back to the next thing. So very simple to do. Okay. Now, once that's all done, we can actually go in and do the daily close procedure, which can give me margin reporting, gives me reconciliation for the payment types, all of those sorts of things, and can set posting date ranges for the employees so that you can never accidentally back post orders or any of that kind of stuff. You're always working in the current day, and nobody's going to make a mistake where, you know, if I come into the counter sales orders here and open one up, and maybe I have something with a document date of you know, 3 days ago or whatever it happens to be, or posting date, it's not going to let me post in that. It's always going to make sure it posts in the current day that I'm doing the transaction. Lots of little things that catch people up when they're using, you know, Business Central for, you know, this type of sales process. Now, a couple quick things here that I'll show you on the setup. So I'm going to go into counter sales setup, and this sort of leads into one of the questions there on licensing. So technically you can use a device user license for this. It's a little weird. So we'd have to have a bit of a discussion on how you use a device user with counter sales. But you can actually even use a team member license with counter sales to some extent. That's more for on-prem. It doesn't really work very well in cloud, but you do have that ability to some extent. So back to the setup here, a few things I'll mention. You know, there's lots of things you can set up as far as how everything works. Here's that rounding stuff for the cash sales I mentioned. There's a few other things around special orders where you can have, there's an action I didn't show you, where if you want to create a special order item to order things in, whole bunch of good stuff that you can set up in here. And you know, the report selection. So we do ship, you know, some basic reports with it, and these are for, you know, printing the invoice or the cash receipt and those sorts of things. If you want to use a receipt printer, again, this is more for the counter sales type environment where it's not going to be a little receipt. It's more likely going to be, you know, an 8.5 by 11 invoice that you're providing the customer. But if you want to use a receipt printer or anything like that, you can absolutely do that as well. Now, one of the things I wanted to come in here was more talk about, the counter sales users. And this is where you actually set up the people that are working at the counter. So I've only got myself set up here. And here are some of the things that I mentioned. If I don't want to go to the sales order after I do the take order wizard, I can go to that scanning interface. So if most of my stuff is people bringing things up to the counter for me to scan in, I would have it set up to go to the scan first, and that's how I process my order. And a few other little things here that we can set, including that override code, whether we show the margin on the orders or not, and how we deal with the location, right? So in this particular case, I say I'm tied to Maine all the time, but we can do a whole bunch of different things here as well. This post behavior, that's where we get into the user types, where if you have a team member user, and again, that's mostly on-prem because Business Central Cloud doesn't let you mess around in sales orders with a team member. But for on-prem, you can use a limited user or team member license to do this. And when you actually post that order, it just caches that. And at the end of the day, when you run the daily close report, it'll actually post all the orders for you. So for on-prem, you can use the team member license. All right, so that's basically it. That is roughly what I wanted to cover with counter sales. Again, there's a few things like the daily close and a bunch of other stuff. If you're interested in messing around with it, you can install this from AppSource. There's a 2-week trial or 3-week trial that you get when you install from AppSource. Run the assisted setup. It'll walk you through. It'll set everything up. And as soon as that's done, you can go in here and you can start entering orders, taking deposits, posting, seeing what the results are, doing your daily close. All that kind of stuff is possible with that trial version license for a few weeks. All right. Looks like there's a few more questions. And is there a reason not to use counter sales as a simplified order entry interface for just entering sales orders? Absolutely not. We have that a lot where I have an internal sales rep and all they're doing is taking sales orders. Why would you use the built-in Business Central order entry screen? You can just use the counter sales orders. If you don't want to use the take order wizard, I just say new, and it's just a simplified order entry screen with all those other goodies, right? This works exactly the same way it would work if I was just doing it like Business Central. The difference is, again, it's much more simple, and we do have that search criteria where somebody on the phone says, yeah, I'm looking for a black chair, and I can't remember which one I want or whatever, and I can come in here and type in black chair and be sure that I'm going to get all the results that have that chair, right? Okay, so yes, short answer is it can just be a simplified order entry screen, even if you're not using it to take payments or deposits or any of that other stuff. And again, it does integrate with the warehouse. So if I'm doing, phone order entry on here and I'm done, I can come in either, when I release the order or just manually, I can come in here and I can say create pick. And that'll, if I've got, for example, warehouse picks turned on, that's going to create the warehouse shipment for me. It's going to create the warehouse pick. It's going to yell at me if there's anything that I can't pick. It's going to do a lot of nice things there to help integrate with the warehouse management in Business Central. Okay. All right. And can you set up a specific currency per location, store, or user? The currency currently still is dependent on what you've set on the customer card. If it's for cash sales, yes, you can set up a specific currency by location effectively for cash sales. But if I bring up a customer that's set up to pay in US dollars versus euros or something, it is going to default from that customer. But yes, for cash sales, you can set up a different currency by location if you like. All right. Great, that was good. I'm not sure if there's any additional questions, but again, if you do have them, let us know. What I'll do is I'll just do a quick summary here. Oh, and I should mention on the pricing side for counter sales, it's reasonably competitively priced. I shouldn't say reasonably competitively. It's just priced pretty well. It's priced per store. There's no per user licensing or anything like that, or per lane. There's one price for the first store or location you're dealing with, and then there's a discounted price for any subsequent store or location you're dealing with. So it's just kind of one price, and use it as much or as little as you like. And there is a question on serialized tracking. Absolutely. So we can track serial numbers and everything else the standard way. that you do that. And incidentally, if you're doing any shipping, counter sales is great, right? If you're actually shipping stuff out, I can enter it all with counter sales, and then I can use dynamic ship directly from counter sales, or the shipping department can use it to actually ship that stuff out the door and record the serial numbers or lot numbers of the product they've actually picked to put on there. But yeah, if you want to record your serial numbers within counter sales, that's easy. You can do that, no problem. Okay. Now there is a question that's on using this. If you're doing trade shows and things like this, can you use this at a trade show? Yeah, as long as you have an internet connection, which is sometimes an issue at those trade shows and things like that. As long as you have an internet connection, you can use it. And the pricing is, that would just be considered, one store, one location, and that's it. So there wouldn't be, it's not like a new license for every trade show or anything like that you go to. Okay. And there's another question there that yeah, so there is a question on bound books, and that's a little bit of a larger question. I'll as soon as I'm done the slide, I'll show you a little bit on Doc Extender, but that's probably a question for your partner that you want to talk to. But short answer is, to a certain extent it does, but yeah, talk to your partner on that and they'll be able to help you out with that. Now, some information. If you need more details, go to our website. You can contact us directly, or again, talk to your partner if you have questions. There's additional webinars coming up. There's one coming up in a week on Wms Express. Really, if you're dealing with inventory, and if you're on this webinar, you're dealing with inventory clearly, look at Wms Express. It allows you to receive, ship, pick, count inventory, all with barcode scanners. It's free, easy, and you can actually even win your barcode scanners on that webinar we have coming up. Now, so that's the upcoming webinars. If you want to see recordings of any of the other products that we have out there, you can go on the webcast. There's on-demand videos you can look at to see what the other products do, or you can go to our knowledge base that has a lot of detail about how most of these products work, right? User guides, install guides, all that kind of stuff, and some direct links there. All right, so that's all I wanted to cover. Now, there are a bunch more questions that have come in here on this. Yeah, so I think my last comment, yeah, talk to your partner on some of those questions that you have on those specific details. If you do have any questions, again, your partner is probably the best starting point. If they don't have the answers, or if they're not one of our resellers, contact us and we'll do our best to help you. Now, the one thing I did want to mention, this is not necessarily related to the question we talked about, but this Doc Extender dealie here, that's another one of those free tools which just lets you drag and drop. Again, you go install it off AppSource, completely free, and now I can drag and drop an email into this, or drop a document into this, or whatever, and that stores it either in Business Central or on SharePoint, and we can do that on item cards or sales orders or purchase orders or customers or whatever the heck you want to do. Okay, so that's another nice tool that's available for you. All right, with that, I'd like to thank everybody for attending. I hope you have a great weekend, and looking forward to talking to you again soon.
Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel for more great content.